over a quarter of a century, the best paintball teams in the world have gathered in Orlando, Florida at the end of the year to answer a simple question through a hard test. Who is the best on the biggest stage at the last event of the season? Over the years, the World Cup has been the scene of gunfight magic, a place of battle where skills earned through hard work, applied in the biggest of moments, has forged talented names into legend. But this year, the COVID pandemic has deferred dreams, stopped stories, and the entire sport at its highest level was put on hold. With only one NXL event in the books, the middle of the season became the longest offseason that we have ever had. But the brakes are now off. World Cup 2020 is just on the horizon, and the 4-day battle to see who is the world's best paintball team is almost here. Who will emerge as the champion? Go watch all of the intense battles now from the 2020 NXL World Cup, only on GoSports.com. The driving mission at GoSports is to bring you the best paintball content and broadcast in the world, behind the scenes, in the pits, and on the field. To continue this mission, we're rolling out a renovated website platform across the board with easier search functions and a more robust chat system for better interaction with your fellow fans. Dive farther into the game with a new integrated stats portal. Get your insight into the game anytime, anywhere, with an improved functionality across all mobile devices. Check it out now on GoSports.com. Don't miss the Welcome to Go Sports Live. I'm Matty Marshall. I got Joe Barrett here in the seat today. A new pickup for San Diego Aftermath coming from Sacramento DMG. We got a decent amount to talk to Joe about. He's also been around the world playing paintball. Just got done with the day of some scrimmaging today at Mike McLaughlin's field in Davis. Just had a move. So, yeah, Joe, we got a decent amount to talk about. Just real quick, everyone mark your calendars. As in a couple weeks here, 15th through the 17th of January, we've got the Pro Paintball Exhibition coming at you from Central Florida Paintball. So looking forward to that as we are going to try to have a good 2021 season here. Still a pandemic going on, but you know the show must go on. So Joe, we do have a little bit to talk about today. I do want to pick your brain about the team you just and the camp that you just came from, as you were one of the leaders there with Sacramento DMG. But one of the big news is, or one of the big pieces of the news that had broke here in the past couple weeks has been the reemergence now of Mike Kimmin, San Diego Aftermath. And you're going to be a piece of that puzzle. So let's just jump right into it, and let's kind of start with that. Let's start with this. How was the day at Davis Paintball today? You know, I know Mike McLaughlin, old school teammate of mine, excessive in the Ironman back in the day. So how was everything at Davis Paintball?
It was awesome. Yeah, we have a lot to talk about, but right off the back, that was a great day. Me and my new and once former teammate, Tim Brusselback, came out. I actually just moved, so I live about 5 minutes away from Davis. And, the other field where I used to play, Capitol Edge, which I still intend on playing at times, they had their tryouts today for the camp. So it just made sense to go to an empty field down the street from my house, do some drills, sharpen up, and, kind of get back into our flow before we fly out to San Diego next weekend to play with Aftermath.
Maybe we should do this kind of before we jump into the conversation about your transition from DMG to Aftermath. We've had you on the show before, but let's just remind everyone kind of where you came from, because, you do have a slight hint of an accent. So if people are first listening to you, they might be like, where is he from? But you have traveled quite a bit. You played with a lot of different top teams. Can you just give me the Cliff Notes version of your trajectory here through the pro game before we kind of get into the main conversation of the day, which is, talking about DMG for the past couple seasons, and then the reasons for the move to Aftermath, and then the plan for Aftermath.
Yeah, absolutely. So for anybody who doesn't know, I was born and raised in between Buffalo and Niagara Falls, New York. So I kind of almost sound like someone from the Midwest mixed with a Canadian. It's the best way I can explain it. It's ridiculous. I pronounce my R's very hard. So yeah, I take a lot of crap for that. But Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm kind of a citizen of the world at this point because I've moved so many times and I've lived in many places. I've lived out of my car in many places around our country, and I've been in plenty other countries for months at a time without coming home. So at this point, I just see myself as like an earthling rather than even a California person. But I guess to summarize things, I started off playing in the big regional AXBL league in the Northeast. Became a free agent for like the longest time through dozens and dozens of D3 and D2 teams. Eventually, played for Shockwave Canada, their premier team at the time before Impact. And then I started going through semi-pro teams like 810, Static, Rhythm, New York Extreme at the time, and finally found a home on Tampa Bay Damage in the Pro League. I had played pro already in NPPL, but that league obviously fell apart. And I had played at the pro level in CXBL, but it took another few years until I went pro in proper X ball, which, was PSP and then became NXL. Since then, I went from 2 years in Florida playing with the Damage organization to DMG, and I finished 3 full years in Sacramento playing for DMG.
And again, we do have it's probably in the archive somewhere, but we have the full discussion of your paintball career from a previous show. But I just wanted to give people a little reminder and that you've been around, man. I mean, you've also played overseas quite a bit. You've definitely been lucky enough to go to Europe and kind of all over. Can you give me a little bit of the cliff notes there as well too? Because that's kind of part of the dream. I mean, obviously when someone starts playing paintball, the first thing you would love to have is free paintball. That'd be great because paintball can be very expensive. So ideally getting good enough so that someone at least is paying for you to play. That's step, that's the coolest thing you possibly could have to start things out. And then from there, realizing, wow, this thing's played all over the planet, and it would be kind of awesome if I could find a way to go and maybe use my paintball skills to, catch a ride, to go to these cool spots and meet cool people, which you've been able to do. So talk to me a little bit about that. Because I do think that that's something that a lot of guys coming up the ranks, girls coming up the ranks, that they aspire to do, and you've been able to do that. So talk to me a little bit about your international experience as well too.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I've discussed it with you, and I've discussed it on numerous podcasts now. And in my opinion, there's two reasons that you can go pro if you're not just going to coast and say, I just want to be pro. There's trying to be the best, there's trying to be Ali Lang or trying to be that big contract guy, or to get to Impact or Heat or Russian Legion where you maybe make enough salary where you can make a living off of paintball. But for the other, it's no secret, for the other over a dozen teams, you still need to do other things. But in my opinion, the biggest treasure of professional paintball is once you have that status, you basically have a passport to around the world. And teams understand that they could use your help, not only to help win games and tournaments, but to teach them how to do it themselves. And they'll pay for your flights, your hotel, your rental car, your food oftentimes, and maybe even put some money or a gun in your pocket. So that was kind of more my incentive on chasing this as hard as I could, because, I came from like a lower class suburbia in Western New York. And my whole time growing up, I was like, man, I just want to see the world. I want to experience everything before I die. I want to be everywhere, but I don't know how to do this. Like, I can't afford to do it. And if I get this college degree my parents want me to do, I'm going to get 2 weeks off a year to go do it. Of course, there are some ways to do it. You could be a traveling nurse and things, but I want to figure out something that I love doing and it will take me to all those places. And I just put in, those 10,000 plus hours until I got to that point. And, it's something me and Harrison realized when we were semi-pro players, is that if you begin traveling, especially on your own dime before you're pro, that's kind of a good way to start playing against those pro players and get yourself noticed, get your name said on, let's say, the Millennium podcast or the PALS podcast or the MXL podcast. And eventually it's like, yeah, actually, I know that guy. I've played heads up against him and he's pretty good. He shot a lot of us. And that might actually be your stepping stone into pro in your US league. So, yeah, I mean, I've played everywhere now. I think I've been to every continent except for Africa. And I was intending on going to Super Cup this year, except for COVID happened. But I guess notable things I've done overseas, I've played with the all-star KTM team in Asia with like Fedorov, Mishka, Harrison. Um, I've won or played in finals in a few different PALs and Asia leagues. I've played in Australia and New Zealand. I've played for Breakout Spa, Kiev United, both pro teams. And I've also played for 5-star semi-pro team and coached the pro team last season when we had that Amsterdam mudfest of death. So yeah, I've been to a lot of places, and it's been a hell of a journey. I really, sometimes I look around when I wake up and I'm like, I don't know how the hell I got here, but just grateful every day.
No, it's cool. I mean, it's one of those success stories. You know, it's not like you're driving a Ferrari, living in your baller ass house, you know, with your, you know, and living this crazy lifestyle with a ton of money in your bank. But, you know, I've officiated a decent amount of weddings, and one of the lines in my ceremony is, you know, if it's true that when you die, your life flashes before your eyes, then the last story that you're ever going to hear or see is your story. So you better make it a good one. And, you know, and spiraling into the abyss, the last thing you're probably going to be thinking is like, oh, I really wish I put more money in my 401k. You know, like that's probably not how it's going to be. You know, you're probably going to be cycling through all the insane awesomeness that you were able to experience with your family, your friends, you know, and travels, and, you know, all the things that all the challenges that you sought out. And you being one of those guys that just the past, you know, maybe 5 years, I really, when I was going over Millennium, I saw you over there, and I was here and seeing you kind of travel all over. I'm like, yeah, all right, man, Barrett's getting after it. You know, like Joe Barrett's actually kind of living the paintball dream right now. And I just respect that. I think it's super cool. But that's something that a lot of people will ask me, younger guys will ask me, you know, how do I do that? You know, how is that even possible? Like, how does one get to the place where, you know, you're getting an email from some dude that owns a business in Brussels or whatever, and he's like, yeah, so we're going to take care of all your stuff. You just got to, you know, here's your flight. We hope we win this tournament. You know, like, how does one get to that scenario? So kind of just real quick, give everyone an insight into that. You know, what is the secret? You know, what's the secret to that? You know, break that down for me real quick before we kind of head into your most recent adventure here, because I do want to get a thorough discussion of DMG. I think that's been an interesting road for you guys the past couple seasons. And that's a team that's going to continue forward. So I want to hear your insight on that now that you are leaving that program. Then obviously we got to, you know, just talk about the news of the day, which is the move to Aftermath and what you guys feel like you're going to bring to the Pro Division in 2021. But yeah, dude. So Joe, kid, again, I think I might have asked you this when we talked about it and when we had you on the show before, but it definitely bears repeating. All right, 18-year-old dude, kid comes up to you and is like, I want to travel around the world playing paintball. How do I do that? What's your answer?
Yeah, I would love to give insight on this because, you know, a lot of my friends and teammates, like, whenever I try to invite them to these things, they're afraid to just go with the flow and do it. And they're like, well, it's not fair. You guys are experts. Like, and, you know, obviously there's guys like Greenspan and Marcelo, and rest in peace, my good friend, Tim Montresor, who did it a little bit more than us. But, you know, me and my good friend and world traveling buddy Harrison, I'd say, are the next two guys. And, you know, there's obviously step one, which is you have to put in your 10,000 plus hours. You have to get to a level where people are willing to, you know, send you that email and fly you across the world to play a tournament for them, all expenses covered. But in my opinion, I don't know, it's almost the easy part. It's just following the script. Like, if you're able to work hard, you'll eventually get there. You know, to me, there's so many other things that make it harder. And this is probably the thing I get messaged most often. At least once a day, I'll get in my inbox, how are you doing all this? Like, how are you just going to these places? Don't you have to call out of work? Or, you know, isn't your girlfriend going to be angry or whatever? And the harder part to teach people is how to, what's the term here? How to create lifestyle design to go down that path. You know, in my opinion, it's easier to commit to the practice, the drills, the doing more than everybody else around you. And yeah, that's hard work and it sucks and it's going to cost you money until you get to a certain level. But it's just saying, I want to do this and committing to it. What's really hard is sacrificing all the other things, and a lot of them that you love doing. It's the biggest thing I tell people is that it's very hard to have balance and live this life. If people watch my Instagram, they're going to see 2 weeks of backpacking through Mexico about 2 weeks ago, where it's just I'm staying at random hostels, I'm going and partying with people I meet along the way, I'm climbing waterfalls, and I'm doing a lot of fun stuff. And it's like, how do you do all that? You're lucky. I wish I could do all that. But what they don't see is like, I don't go party, locally. When people say, let's go to the bar on Friday night, I say I can't, because I need to keep showing up and Saturday and Sunday and being a guy who's going to earn this life. And when girls, unfortunately, want to get more serious, I tell them, listen, I enjoy seeing you, but there will never, ever be a time, at least in the next 10, 15 years at this point, I'm about 30, when I'm going to turn down a phone call that says, hey, you want to come to New Zealand? Exactly. Like, the game is on the finger first. And, I enjoy company, but if somebody wants me to start becoming more their life than my own, when I put in my 17 years to earn this kind of life, sorry, it's almost a no-brainer decision for me. And it's beyond just relationships. It's everything. I'm not even proud to say it, but like, when you know how to put something as number one priority, not it is, but sometimes it changes. When you prioritize it, it sometimes means you miss weddings, you miss birthdays, you miss almost every holiday. I've spent the last like 4 Thanksgivings in Asia or Mexico. I've missed funerals, which sucks, but it's like, I kind of also want to backpack down the coast of Thailand, and that's what it is. So I think that's the part when you tell those people, the reality of it dawns on them when they go, oh, that's literally his whole life. That's just not his job, and he goes and does it here and there. That's anytime the call comes, he does it. You just never say no to any opportunity.
Yeah, we joke a lot of times, and if people have brought this up, I mean, this is definitely one of those things a lot of people say, but the best ability is availability. So if you don't have a lot of ties tying you into the world, and I also tell everyone, like, learn a trade too, because you got to find a way to make a living. So if you have that ability to do that, and it can kind of, and especially a lot of people are realizing this in 2020 with the whole COVID taking out the gig economy and restaurants and all this sort of stuff, is to kind of have some way that you have, whatever it may be, whatever your trade is, whether it's, doing things online and some sort of programming, or if you're building kitchens for people, or, you using your hands to make things. But having a trade that's going to allow you to kind of, in whatever way you can, write your own ticket a little bit, like that's part of it too. And then being willing when you're, in your 20s to not kind of tie yourself down is, yes, definitely kind of can free up that travel stuff. But honestly, it's like I just had a son. As I'm an older dad for sure, as everyone can see here, the gray beard and the bald head. But I have like zero FOMO now, So when I'm sitting there and I'm holding my son, it's like I don't really want to go to the bars, and I don't really give 2 shits about any of that. Because there was a time and a place for that, and I got to travel and see the world and do all that crazy stuff. So I'd love to do that with my son someday. But that being said, it's really cool but like you said, it definitely comes down to putting your time in your backyard, at your local field, doing drills, grinding out in the divisional ranks, seeing where your talent, how far can your talent take you? How far can your talent and your hard work take you? And that's really has to do with your work ethic. So yeah, man, props to you that you've gotten this far. But so let's bring that into the present now. So you are making the move to go over and play for Aftermath during this rebuild that Mike's brought in a bunch of guys. Some more news broke here. So I do want to kind of also still tilt back slightly and talk about GMG and the lineup, the DMG, because this is now gonna, so it's you and so who else so far? What's the public news as far as like who's on Aftermath right now that we can talk about? Okay, let's talk about it right now then.
Yeah.
So you tell me.
Brandon Unger. Yep. As soon as Mike Hinman got the team and the pro spot back, Brandon Unger left Thunder to go back. And I think everybody saw that coming. And from what I know, Thunder guys even wished him well because it's going back to his home where he was in semi-pro and the guy that he works for in WCPPL. It's a good move. You want that guy to be doing what makes him happy. After that, we were kind of already being asked by the original DMG guy, John Iannucci, to come along. And I had several offers this year. My couple friends had several offers. But basically, we looked around and we were like, if we go anywhere, it's going together. It's going to be the three amigos. And, I love a lot of everyone on my DMG team, but the original guys that are still left that I moved here to play with were my two closest friends, Tim Brusselbeck and Josh Hallberg. And I told teams that straight up. And I had great deals on the table, but I said, can you take three? And I even kind of knew that was a limiting factor. Some of my other friends and coaches and mentors told me, they're like, listen, you're going to limit your options here. A lot of these teams are going to say they'll take you as one person or the role immediately. It's going to be hard to go onto a team as a package deal. But I said, I'm not leaving unless I go with Josh because he's still on DMG. He told me the same. And I would like to have Tim come back to playing with us two again so that I have my snake front guy who's a serpent level beast, one of the sneakiest guys in the game, top 5 on any given day. I don't care what anyone says. And then I have Josh Hallberg as my Dorito front, who when he gets to focus on only his game and not being a player coach, we call him Bruce Lee. He's one of the best creative Dorito attackers in the game. And it's not unfrequent that he pulls out a random 1-on-3 against top 5 level teams. And you're like, man, where does this come from? And then I get to kind of be like just the connector in the middle. I just get to shoot my gun and be alive and quarterback 2 high-level guys and a bunch of other role players. That's what I moved across the country to do. So that's the 4 that are confirmed so far as pro players. And then we've already seen he's released David Ramirez as a move alert, who is one of his close local players from Mutiny.
Yeah, and I think that's a good start. That's a solid team. I had a long talk with Mike. I got another one coming up here pretty soon. Me and Mike go way back.
Yeah.
He's a local San Diego guy. So it's always cool to kind of touch base with Mike. But yeah, so, when we talked about what's going on, and I had spoken with this about Brandon too. We had just had Brandon on the show. But this has kind of been the big news. I told Mike, I was like, look, man, I'm really happy that you are back into it and motivated to try to put a competent team together. And it had been a really tough beat for Aftermath because they came into the pro league hot. And Mike had said, look, the guys on that team earned that spot. And then when they go in, they take third at Vegas. And then it was just an absolute, dumpster fire disaster after that. No wins at all the rest of the year, essentially. And then heading into this year, also absolutely terrible as well, too. We can get into that a little bit. But, again, I'm talking to Mike, and he had said, I didn't really want to step on anyone's toes. I'm cool with with John and everything. And they kept having to rebuild, guys left. And it was very difficult for him. But, Aftermath becoming like a Midwest team, and that's where it was kind of located. And then with none of the guys that were essentially on the team that helped earn the spot, it didn't have, the look or the feel of what Aftermath was in the past. Again, Midwest team with dudes that didn't earn that spot, and again, and Mike had a lot of positive things to say about John, but he also said, he's like, at this point in time, it just made sense for me after, and he had to walk away because, he invested in a business, and if he wasn't, feet on the ground, hands dipping in gelatin at the factory, then they were losing money. And, it takes some time to kind of get business stuff dialed in, but he's got, family, he's got a bunch of kids. And so, I totally understood when he walked away. It made a lot of sense. But Mike is definitely motivated to get back into it. And he is also no bullshit about the situation confronting you guys, though. He knows how difficult it is in the pro division. We had a discussion, again, off camera completely, but just about how difficult it was right now and how competitive things were in the pro division. And that is the real situation confronting everybody in the pro division. It's never been harder to be a winning paintball team in the history of the sport. He knows that. And he's like, Matty, he's like, legit, my goal is to just not take last place. Like that's goal one. He's like, and you can't tell me with the dudes I'm picking up that we're not going to do that. And he's like, I know we're so, but I'm being realistic about this. Like, I know the guys I'm picking up are super solid, and we're looking towards the future. So I know I'm bringing in a roster that step one, don't get relegated, right? Step one, don't take last place, and then let's build from there. But I'm trying to be humble about this and be realistic. So, I want to see who's going to show up, who's going to be willing to, Mike's all about the grind. Like, Mike is very much all about who's going to be there on the weekend, who's going to make this their lifestyle, and who's willing to show up and, take the verbal beatings to make them better, take the physical beatings to make them better. And he's like, and we'll find out, we're going to find out over time who needs to be my starting five. But as it stands right now, I feel very strongly about the guys I'm bringing in. He said very positive things about you guys. Again, this is completely off camera. Because anytime I talk to people, I'm like, look, not everything's for public consumption. So, you tell me something and you don't want it to get out, I totally understand, because, that's life, man. And not everything can be for public consumption. We've had those conversations before. But he was like, Matty, to be honest, like, yep. Yeah, I appreciate that. But I really do believe in this five that I'm bringing in, but I'm not stopping there, and you know how Mike is. Like, if guys don't cut it, or he feels like he needs to bring in more guys, he's going to bring in more guys. But where it stands right now with you, Brandon Unger, Brusselback, Hallberg, David Ramirez, that's a pretty solid group. He's obviously going to keep going, and because he needs to bulk out a roster a little bit. So we'll see in the next week or so, what happens with that. But let's talk about that roster, though, a little bit here, Joe, because you, as well as I know, that it's not just about names on the backs. It's not about the name on the front. It's about positional skills. It's about who's playing what position. And anyone that's a sports fan knows this. If it's not just, if it's mixed martial arts, if it's boxing, we're talking about how your skill set matches up, how your style matches up with that other guy that, or girl that you're opposing. But in a team sport, if we're talking about baseball, you got to have a badass shortstop. You need a competent third baseman. You need a lineup that through 1 through 8, at least in the National League, is going to be, putting an offensive threat out there that's going to, it's like we got a badass lineup with the Padres right now. Hopefully we're going to give the Dodgers a run for the money. If you're looking at football, same situation there. That's team sports. So let's talk about it from a paintball perspective. Let's look at this lineup. From snake side to D side, how do you think this is going to break down for you guys?
I'll say I know there's another guy or two he's already thinking about, but he hasn't put out the roster release on guys who've been playing with him the past few weekends. So I don't believe it's mine to say before the news is broken. And then who knows who will grab this coming weekend when a bunch of us drive down to SD and basically handpick the people that we think are good and we enjoy their chemistry playing around us. Obviously Mike is the final say, but he wants to build a team of, hey, what kind of role? Yeah, we clearly need another Dorito guy. Okay, let's grab that guy, but let's just say those 5 that are already public knowledge. I know that David Ramirez is for the most part a 3. He could probably play a 2 on both sides. I'm sure he can play up the center. Tim Brusselback is a snake specialist, hands down, but he's a front guy. You want that guy in an attack spot where he can take creative freedom and go win the game. And today, I was doing things on Dorito side with him, and he's just as lethal on Dorito side. We don't really, at the pro level, you're not really looking at the shapes of the bunkers. You're looking at, okay, which side's the aggressive side? All right, I'm going to go that way if I'm an aggressor. Whereas me, I'll play anywhere, but I kind of want to play on the more slow, methodical side where I can stay in control. So it's like, all right, which side's the slow side? I don't care if it's the snake or Dorito side. I'm going to go that way. And then that leaves Unger, who is also a 1, and I've seen him play the 1 for Thunder on Dorito and snake side. I feel like he probably thinks the same, where it's like, hey, put me to the side that I'm playing better after the first day of practice on the layout. So I'm very confident with those 2. And I think I've even seen Unger play as a snake side 2 behind the less experienced 1s on Thunder, because they know that if that guy dies off break, he'll just get right in there. So I feel like that could be a cool combo. And then me and Josh Hallberg are basically your utility players. We can play the 1, 2, and 3. I'd say Josh is more of a 1-2, whereas I'm more of a 2-3. But if layouts get bad, or if you need to island someone on the Dorito side, I've been the Dorito front player countless times. I'll I'll play in the snake, but I don't really want to run there off break because I prefer to be on my gun. So yeah, we'll kind of just fill in where is necessary. And with a versatility of 3, relatively fast athletic guys that are willing to go all over the place, and 2 ones that can play both sides as a 1, I feel like you can really mix up a lot of dynamic looks out of even just those first 5 without mixing anybody else in.
And I feel dynamic mixes is something we should talk about as well too. When you look at the top teams, with some exception, you have to be relatively versatile in the sense you need to have some players that can play both sides, so you're less scoutable. That has been the trend for the past couple years. Yes. So when I look at where you guys are at, so yes, Brusselback is a snake specialist, but I think, and then with Unger, one of the things I talked with Unger about is that I think he will be better as that 2 on the snake side, playing that kind of a Alexander Burtnikov situation, that spot where you're playing that second attacker. Because even though if I was coaching him, I would be putting him in situations where he could feel his aggressive tendencies start to bear fruit. In high body situations, I would want him to be in a 3, on 2, and him be on that 3 side, or that 4 on 3, or 5 on 3, or whatever. But him be in that spot where he has the ability to, to have the freedom of that extra body, so that he can kind of feel and not be second guessing himself when he's making those big, dynamic, and bold moves. And I feel like that's important for the evolution of his game, because he has very sound technical skills, but and I think that's one of the things that I think Mike's gonna be able to bring out in him, because Mike builds aggressive snake players. So I think that's gonna be incredibly good for Unger. I think it's gonna be good for Aftermath. So that'll be a good symbiotic relationship between the leadership of the team and him as a player, because I do believe in Brandon Unger and his ability to get better. He's also already really good as it starts with Tim. Now Tim's hyper aggressive already, so it's kind of one of those situations where it's like, Tim, he's one of those, like, the characteristic aggressive front guy that just needs to work on those early deaths a little bit. But Tim's been around forever, man. Like, we know what we're gonna get. You don't get picked up by impact at one point in time if you're not a badass like killer in the snake. So the fact you guys have a different looks in the snake, and then with Hallberg, and then you, and then with Ramirez, I'm just interested to see who else are going to be pieces to the puzzle here for San Diego Aftermath. Obviously, we'll keep everybody updated, but that's remains to be seen. It's not necessarily set in stone here as to what the look is going to be like for Aftermath. But being on DMG these past couple seasons, Damage before that, I mean, you've had an intimate look at the pro league and how competitive it has been the past couple seasons. So, maybe we could kind of talk a little bit about that. Well, actually, because then I also want to get a dissection from you from DMG too, because I think, obviously this is a big hit to DMG. It's kind of like we just saw AC Dallas got dismantled. DMG still has a lot of talent on that squad, but I think, we got to call it like we see it. And to lose you and Hallberg, and then obviously Brusselback was playing on Uprising last year, so it's been a while since he'd been on DMG. But losing you and losing Hallberg, that's a real big loss for DMG. So I kind of want to and that group of guys in that program as good as anybody. And they're still going to be around, and they're looking to pick up some more guys. So I'm just kind of want to get your read on how you think they're going to be next year, where you see the starting 5. Now they're losing 2 essentially of the starting 5 and 1 the year before that. But let's just kind of go and have this discussion about where things stand with the league in general right now. I really think that we are, regardless of COVID, heading into a year where hopefully we can get all the tournaments in, but I've never seen it more competitive. There's a lot of teams that have a chance. We've been saying it constantly, but it definitely is something that is important to repeat, is the fact that the Ironmen win the first event of last year, that needs to give everybody confidence, because if you're looking and you go back to where they were sitting at on the verge of heading in, they were ranked, actually it was 8th place overall, heading into the last season. No, wait, hold on. It was worse than that. 8th place was the year before that. They were 10th. Yeah, so it was 10th and 8th place the year before that, and then they get that win. And then Dynasty Dynasty loves to make it dramatic. So they were able to make it super dramatic and win the World Cup, and do it also by letting X Factor get back in the game. Yeah, of course, right? Of course, that's how it's going to go down. But just give me your impressions of it.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about this, and then I think it just makes sense for the order, and then we talk about the new team because it's the future. You know, I feel like there is no love lost for DMG because all those guys are my friends, and that's what made it very difficult to leave. Is you're not just team jumping, and there are a lot of those guys who make moves without any emotion. They go, this is what's better, and they just do it, and they don't give a shit about the phone calls or anything like that. But when I had originally left Damage to come here, it was because I wanted to play with a certain select group of friends. And after that first year, 3 of those friends left, Tim Brusselback, Thomas Kim, and Andrew Wyatt. And right then and there, it was like, it's funny. It's like when you're kind of the team that you might go to Impact if you're those guys, it's like when it happens, you almost push those guys to do it. It's like, yeah, you have to go do that, and you're happy for him. Like we all pushed him to go take that offer. But at the same time, I didn't expect it to happen to some of them, or I didn't expect some of them to take it, even though I should, because obviously if they're trying to buy houses or have kids or whatever, anybody would take that offer. But in my head, it's like, okay, this is a team with a camp. We're going to eventually pull up semi-pro players one by one. Certain guys are going to leave. Maybe they don't get play time, but I'm not going to lose these, like 4 or 5 best friends around me. And when 3 of them left after 1 year, it was like, I still had Josh on the team, but by the next year, he was basically the coach, and I wasn't really on the field with him much. And I still had, I had become very close with like Marvin and Shane Howe, and everybody else that entire next year were all guys that I didn't even know when I moved over here. And over time, they're great guys. They became friends, and I think they all have high potential. But, I looked around and I was like, whoa, more than half of this team is not the same team. Like, we're the same name, DMG, but I'm not playing with the guys that I was intending on playing with. And, I'm a loyal person, and me and Josh kept saying, like, hey, if you're not leaving, I won't leave. And we'd stick it out, just not getting the same offer at the same time. But so I feel like that team, what they have is a camp, and they have direction, and they have an excellent sparring partner in Impact. So there's a lot of benefits. There's really some good resources to bring up divisional guys from D5 up to semi-pro within a few years. We saw one kid go from D3 to semi-pro last year and play well. And maybe the next year, if they're really working hard and learning and producing, get brought up to the pro team, because we're going to notice those guys who start shooting us. So it's a team that it's great for the development of rookies, like semi-pros into young pros. And, it's great for guys like Shane who, they have a life set up. He's an older guy. He's been through the whole pro thing for like 20, 30 years. I think it's more like 20, 30 centuries now, because he's like a vampire.
Yeah, I think it's like 50 or 60,
yeah,
bro. Like, don't take that away
like,
from him. He did that time. You got to give it to him.
Yeah, I think he's 47, and he still runs snake off break like every point for us. It's ridiculous. But yeah, to the point is, like, for someone like him, it's great too, because not like he doesn't have to do any work or never show up and just come to the events, but he has an established life. He has a family. He has 2 great kids. He's got a business, and he can still compete and stay locally and not be one of those guys like me who's like, oh, drop of a hat, I'll just travel and fly every single weekend, and I don't have a wife around who's going to be eventually kind of resentful about that, But for a guy like me, I've played 5 full seasons of pro paintball now, and I just feel like I can go further if I'm not the guy who's responsible for bringing semi-pro dudes up to pace, and I'm okay at it, and I think Josh was good at it too. But I'm not a, Travis Lemansky or Skinny K or a Rusty Glaze. Like, I haven't won a bunch of championships and seasons. I have a lot to do myself, and I still need to win pro tournaments. So for it to fall on my shoulders of like, man, we had a Urena and then he went to Dynasty, and now we got to bring this new young guy up, and he's good, but I got to catch him up to speed, and hopefully by the end of the season he's good. And then if he gets too good, a team reaches out and picks him off, and it's just very difficult because you can see why it happens and you understand it, and there can be no negativity held against it, because it's just the way it is, in our sport, or in any sport really, even in football. But I don't want to be that guy, especially because it takes away from my game and my full potential when I can't just be a soldier and go out there and worry about doing my job. I have to go out there and also think about the X's and O's of a bunch of other guys around me who are trying to reach that level. So I think DMG still has like a very, very good chance at being something. But obviously, I guess to answer your original question, they need to find a coach, because I think that was a big thing that held us back is, Josh Hallberg was our player coach. Before that, it was Thomas Kim. And it's just very, very hard to be a consistent Sunday team if you guys are just democratically deciding how you're going to play the layout together, rather than having that objective clipboard guy saying, here's the discipline you have to follow, here is the game plan, and all you guys need to just take my word and follow suit. And everybody going with one plan is much better than a lot of people going with their own plans, even if they're better plans.
Well, you guys had, if we just go back real quick and look at how you did with DMG for 10 events through 18 and 19, so if we go to 18, 14th, 11th, 11th, 13th, and 9th, made that Sunday at World Cup. So I know that was cool for you guys. For 11th place overall. But then it was a weird year though in 19, because then you took a 17th, and then a 7th, and then a 13th, 14th, and then a 9th. So you made, 2 Sundays instead of 1, but you did worse on the overall standings because your lows were lower than before. And so, but that's frustrating. That's, we're talking about 3 Sundays in 2 years, which for a team like DMG is not bad, man. Making Sunday, being in that top 10 is step one of trying to be, in the upper echelon of the pro game. But it's hard because even top teams occasionally won't be there on Sunday. I wouldn't say top teams, but teams that are fighting to be top teams. But still, how was that kind of, I feel like I got to ask you that question. How is it being on that edge? How is it being on a team? Because then, again, and you would ask me this question, I feel like we should have this conversation for everybody though, is that, now you're going to Aftermath. So, is this a step forward? Is this a step back to take, 2 steps forward? Where is this? And that has a lot to do with you guys. That's a subjective thing. That is not like an objective measure where I could be like, no, for sure, because if you look at standings, Aftermath was here, so, and you guys in DMG was here, so you're doing it. Sure, we can have that conversation, but that's kind of a mute point because the roster's changing. So yeah, sure, the name's the same, but
very true.
The team you're going to field is not the same. The leadership is not the same. So it's a different conversation. But anyway, let's start with that. Again, I can't keep you here all night. But I do want to have that conversation about, because I think that dealing with frustration is a very paintball thing. It's a very human life thing. And so having to be on a team where you're losing some guys here or there, trying to maintain a competitive, threats in positions and be competitive enough to make Sundays. And yeah, sure, you guys made 3 Sundays out of 10 events. But just talk to me about how frustrating that is to be on that level, because there's a couple of 11ths in there as well too, which is just right on that edge.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I totally agree. Well, for starters, I'm in no rush. So if you're not, I got nothing but time after the rest. The rest of this evening is free for me, and I could talk all day with you. So no biggie there. But I did want to address one thing about the placing things, because I feel like a lot of people will hate on people in those like 11th or 12th to 17th place area. You got to remember that sometimes you'll be at an event where all of those teams, 5 teams, will be 1 and 3, and it'll be differences by 0.25 point margin. So you could be 17th, and a team that you would beat if you were in their bracket might be 12th, but they scored one extra point because they also had one of the easier teams in their bracket. So not that I try to make excuses, but Vegas this year, we finished, I think, 17th. It looked bad. It was 1-3, but we went to overtime with Heat and we beat Uprising, who came off of fourth place in World Cup. You know what I mean? And teams did better than us because their games were way higher scoring, so they had more positive points. You know what? We went and played those invitationals this year, and no disrespect to those teams, but we beat the brakes out of all those teams, both events. The only team we ever lost to was Golden State Kings, which is a top-tier team.
You guys did look really good at those invitational events, but I mean, I have your Vegas performance in front of me right now. 14 points for, 25 against, a -11. The big problem for you guys in Vegas was you had an abysmal first day. Your Friday was atrocious. You had now. Don't get me wrong. You're playing two of the best teams in the world at the time. You're playing Impact, and you're playing AC Diesel. But unfortunately for you guys, you were only able to put up 2 points in those two games, and you guys got mercy ruled twice, 1-7 in both those matches. So that kind of did it for you because you did beat Uprising, which is can be a top 4 team occasionally. I kind of want to also ask you, because Brusselback's there with you right now, what is the deal with Uprising? Are they going to be a team next year? Have you heard anything about that? Like, what do you, just real quick interlude before we start diving back into some more of this?
Honestly, I don't know. You'll have to ask him that when you do your interview with him in the coming week. I'm not even sure if he really knows. That's one of those teams where they're good because they've been playing together forever, but it just seems like they get their organization together very last minute before each season, at least from what I know. They're kind of all relaxed guys, and they have other outside lives. So I couldn't tell you. I imagine we'll see them, but I don't know.
There is not a team that's as hot or cold as Uprising. So, but you beat them by 2, and then you lost to Houston Heat by 1. So it was a really good, it was a decent Saturday for you guys, where you went 1-1 and you barely lost to the team that had just come off a World Cup victory. Even though Heat had a disappointing finish at that first event, taking 9th and losing to Revo by 1 point though in the wild card round. But just with DMG, and then you guys went on and you did play in those invitationals. You won one of them. You guys looked good in those, and that was just kind of one of those things where I was looking at DMG and I'm thinking, okay, well, I know they're technically like the brother team for Edmonton Impact, so I don't know how competitive that roster is going to be, because that's a team that everyone else is going to look at like, okay, well, we can grab guys from that squad, because if we don't, then Impact's going to grab them. So how good is Dave going to let DMG get? It was kind of the question with AC Diesel and AC Dallas. And especially now with the implosion of AC Dallas, but it does not look like they're going to cannibalize AC Diesel to continue to have AC Dallas be the premier team in the AC camp. I think that, obviously we'll see how it all works out, because, we got to shoot the paintballs at each other, and that's the end all say all. But AC Diesel had a pretty badass look at World Cup with 3 mercy rule wins in the prelims. So they will be a big story heading into 2021. And it doesn't really look like they're losing anybody, whereas AC Dallas got demolished. So with AC, with DMG, so that's why I got to throw that question at you. Like, so basically, what do you think their starting lineup's going to look like now? And then, who do you think are they actively trying to pick more people up? I would think they're going to, especially with the way that Dave likes to play. Dave's one of the best behind the scenes guys in the game. But just give me your thoughts on DMG here heading into 2021.
Yeah. So they actually had their first tryout today. It might actually still be going right now because it's still light for another hour here in Sacramento. I know that they are going to need to pick up at least someone. They kind of have to fill my role as far as on the field, like a survivable role player 2 or 3 type guy. But they don't necessarily have to, because even without me and Josh, they still have like 8 or 9 guys. I guess 8. I don't know if I can release the news, but I know somebody already left to go to another team. I'm sure you'll get them on the show for that eventually. So, yeah, basically he was an out-of-towner anyways. and we all liked him, but he made a move that was better for him. So yeah, there's still 8 of the local core guys, which is more than enough to play at NXL. I feel like 7 or 8 is a great number, but they still have a talented starting line, even without me or Josh, which once again, Josh didn't even really play the last 7 events. He was more the coach. You have George McLean as the Dorito front player, who is a cannonball. The kid, we one time sent him through, not a round down the wire, but we sent him through to their Dorito 2 off break, and he made it there and bunkered a guy rather than shooting guys on the inside. I think it was against Houston Heat last year. It was ridiculous. So you have a very fast, aggressive, explosive Dorito front player who I think is only going to get better and better with time. And I keep it honest with him because he was a roommate for a while. But, his big thing is working on that maturity, like understanding when to keep his emotions in check and when to not lose his cool after a bad point or after a bad first day at the events. He has unlimited potential and talent, but he's still a, young 21, 22-year-old guy. So he still needs to, in no disrespect, but he still has to have that time of growing up and getting more life experience, and it'll only make him more and more dangerous as he goes. You still have Shane Howe, obviously, as your snake front player, and that's a guy who, as much as you think you got to find another snake guy to start giving him rests, the old man will play every single point of every tournament and never seems to gas out. So you have a good, consistent, sneaky snake one. Behind him, you have probably, I would put Marvin Gerber, who became our Snakeside 2 player this season. He used to be more known for up the center, but we like to call him King Cobra because he was good at being a role player.
Gerber's good, man.
Yeah.
Gerber had some big run-throughs for you guys at Cup.
He does. He's aggressive. Like I love Marv's game when you find the spot for him that he thrives in. When I first came on the team, he was more of a role player. He was kind of like a back anchor spot. And it's not like he was bad at it, but he's an aggressive mentality person. He's looking for the move. He's looking for how to help the game proceed rather than how to control people. And once you put him in those spots where if your one dies, he can fill right in there, or he can punch through the center rather than just go up there and hold the side, he excels. And I look forward to seeing him continuing to do that for DMG, as well as stepping up as a big leader for them. He's got a lot on his shoulders now, and on and off the field, he is now their longest standing original player, and he needs to step up and become that consistent role player and leader for the team.
I feel like we know what Shane Howe has in the bag. Like, I agree with you. Shane Howe continues to impress. We call him the Ageless Wonder, Ageless Assassin, whatever. But Shane Howe's been around long enough that I was playing against Shane Howe. Yeah, whatever he's got. I don't know if he's somehow sacrificing virgins at his compound and drinking their blood. Whatever it is, it's working out great for Shane Howe because he is just still getting it done.
Secret on the inside, whether we're home or traveling, he eats the homeless.
Give it to me. He feeds the homeless, or he eats the homeless. Does he eat the homeless? That son of a bitch! I knew it. Yeah. Eating the homeless. That's his thing. All right, I knew it. I knew there was some. She's too good of a guy. There, you heard it here first, folks. Shane Howe eats the homeless, and that is the secret to his ageless skin and his ability to play paintball at 85 years old. It's crazy. Well, that's why he always plays. That's the first trade. That's why he always plays best in Vegas. Yeah, I should come to San Diego. We got tons of homeless people down here. But Shane Howe is always impressive. But Gerber, McLean, Boyum, these are guys that have really started to impress me, man. When we first saw those guys come out, it just happens to everyone. It was like the same thing as, say, the Jackson brothers. When the Jackson brothers, when you first showed up in the Pro Division, like no one just all of a sudden rolls into the Pro Division and is just setting the league on fire. It almost never happens. It's incredibly rare. It's like 1 out of 100. But what normally happens is that guys are willing to stick around and get into that, the quintessential grind and see what they're made of. Then eventually we're going to see how good they possibly can be. And that's what I'm starting to see out of guys like Gerber, McLean, and Boyum. I mean, guys that were riding the bench before when you guys had a little bit more, when you had your earlier roster, but then they got the reps. But I'm starting to see, we saw some really good moves out of those guys. We saw some stuff where I'm like, man, look at that. They look like that could be a top pro player, given, continue to keep that confidence, get them some reps. And if they believe themselves and they're willing to, keep their skills up and do situational awareness drills, that could be, maybe we'll see that on a more frequent basis because it's there. You do it once, you can do it again. So that's kind of the thing when I'm looking at the starting lineup for DMG. Though I got to say, it is a big hit to lose you. I thought it was a hit for them to lose Brusselback, and it definitely is, even though that Avner kid's been playing. Is it Avner? Is that how you say his first name?
I forgot to name him, but he is still a solid, super consistent role player as a 3 or maybe a 2 on that team. He's known for getting kills off the break, and he can hold a zone for forever. I think once he continues to work on his winnability, which is what we had him work on at the invitationals, like, hey, we get it. You can do a job all game and not die to your bunker. But when it comes time to realizing, oh, you have the ball, your other guys as far as you can go, you have to go close out the game for us. I think once he starts getting that down as a more consistent thing in his game, he's going to be disgusting out there.
Yeah, and we started to see that out of him. I feel like his ability to close was, you need people to burst the game open, and then you have to win things in the scramble. And that's why guys like Matt Jackson are going to get paid to play the game, because his ability to, see it break down. And then in that scramble, when it's the 2-on-3, the 3-on-3, whatever it may be, after after things devolve, and then now you have to go to a brand new game plan that you just made up in your head based on the changing variables. That's when the best of the best thrive. And so I started to see that out of him a little bit, though. And I thought that was cool. And I'm interested to see what happens with DMG here in 2021. Is Dave going to pick anyone else up? How are the guys we just talked about going to handle losing the 2 of you? Because, you were such a solid guy. I mean, you definitely were one of those guys that, you were a consistent player. You're going to go out there. You're not going to die early a lot. You're going to get your kills. You're not going to play stupid. And then occasionally you're going to break points open, and you are also good in the scramble. Like, that's kind of a hard guy to replace. So, then mostly shading towards that D side. So we'll see. I think I can see it in a couple of these guys. I'm looking at the roster on my paper right now. It's just, are we going to see it on a consistent enough basis for them to be making Sundays with their roster? I don't know. I think so, but we will see come, event number 1, how DMG looks. But like I said, and like you said, Dave plays the game, man. Dave Baines, he is one of the best in the business at knowing how to get guys, how to get players, how to keep his teams consistent, keep his teams relevant, and keep a dominant roster out there. Obviously, with Impact, you see him making some big moves here in the offseason, as always, and with his home team DMG out of his field, in Sacramento. So let's just kind of finish this here with a little talk about Aftermath. Again. I know. How are you feeling? Like, just give me your gut feeling right now. Like, why did you decide to go with Aftermath? Because you had asked me, off camera, like, what do you think about this, Matty? Like, and I was like, I honestly think it's cool. It's been interesting to see you make these moves, though, because it's like the way you've kind of gone through your trajectory in your paintball career is you're willing to, like, this is a bold move. You're going to a team that's actually worse on the standings and way less consistent than DMG, and you're a core member of DMG. So this is a risk because, we don't know how good. Obviously, we know how good Unger is, you, Brusselback, and Hallberg. So that 4, and then Ramirez. We haven't seen a ton of him on the main stage, but a lot of people speak highly about Ramirez. Moves still to be announced, moves still to be made here for Aftermath. And you're just kind of in rebuild year number 1 here once Himmin comes back. So we'll see how things continue to push forward. But I'm just wondering what story were you buying into here? As far as the reemergence of Aftermath, like, give it to me from your perspective.
Man, so my feeling is extreme happiness. Like, honestly, I've not been this happy in a while, just because it's weird. Like, I don't know. People think I have like the hippie mindset or whatever, but I felt like I kind of
Well,
was
you got a hippie
creating this
shirt on right
ideal
now.
life.
You know what I'm saying? So I could see how people might think that about you. It does look like you're about
I
to
mean,
lead us into like a seance. Like, what is my dead grandmother saying right now, Joe? Can you please tell me? Like, I really want to talk to Mary Beth Marshall right now. So if you could let me know what she's
Mary
saying,
Beth
that would
said
be
she's
great.
very proud of you. She's very proud of you. She's happy that you've mentored so many young souls like me to go down through this journey. And she also says, wash your clothing, Matty. Wash them. They sit in there for like 2 weeks. Come on, Matty. And
All
also,
right,
when Joe hits
I'm
you up
with
to go
you on all
hiking,
that, but
answer that phone call.
all right, I appreciate that, but I have a wife and she does awesome laundry, so that must have got somehow lost in translation. But Grandma, I love you so much. Joe, thank you for that seance. I really appreciate it. But I do love your tie dye slash some sort of like leopard print slash. I just think you got it going on right now. You look very Northern California, like very very Northern California
Thanks.
right now.
Yeah,
Like the Osley
San Fran
Institute
vibes.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt, but so you're feeling good here about this move to Aftermath?
I feel good because whenever I feel like I'm in, and once again, sorry for the whatever wook terminology, but whenever I'm like in the flow and going the right direction in life, it's like things just kind of work out and drop into my lap. And it feels like whenever I'm not in that like proper flow, like I'm like fighting the current, uh, things are difficult and I'm like struggling and I'm like, spending more money than I'm making. And obviously, like I have a positive mindset, so I'll make the best out of anything. But overall, I'll feel like not as content or as happy with where I am. And when all this happened, it was like literally like less than a 2 week period. And there were all these like synchronicities of like I would drive by a billboard that would be like, take the leap or something like that after a phone call I had. And it's like, it's kind of telling me to just do it. You know what I mean? It's like literally being my consciousness out there in the world, yelling at me like, you want to do this. Your heart's telling you this, but just in case you missed it, here's a fucking, 100-foot billboard telling you to listen to that. You know what I mean? So yeah, I feel ecstatic about it because like, once again, everything just kind of happened so smoothly. Like, I was already being talked about with the other two to go to Aftermath when it was still the Midwest Aftermath. And it's like, okay, there's going to be flights and all that, but it's a good deal. It's, a better deal than I currently had. And there'll be more guys put in around us because the team was already going to get kind of gutted. And I remember thinking like, man, that would be cool, but is there any way we can get Mike back involved? Like, I think his paint company is good now. So can we like have this team with you, but can we get Mike as the coach and you're just like the owner and manager? And, then we have both you as our resource and you can work together. And it didn't seem like it was going to work out that way. And then all of a sudden I remember seeing the releases online of like Aftermath goes back to Hinman, and I thought it was just the name. And then a day or two later, it was like the pro spot goes back to Hinman. And I've been talking to Mike for years. I remember the first time they were on the finals field when I was still on Damage, or no, it would have been the next year. I was on DMG, and we were playing on Sunday at World Cup against Damage. And in our pits coming in, like to start gearing up and getting ready, it was Aftermath starting to get ready to play for a finals. And me and him are talking. And it was like just little things back then that I didn't really see them as going anywhere. But he's like, I've been watching you for a while, and I'd love to coach you, but you're a DMG guy. You're not going to come play with us in semi-pro Aftermath. And I was like, dude, paintball is a real world. You never know what might happen. Like, we could always say I want to be here forever, but I might end up playing for you in the future. And since then, we've had good conversations. We always end up having like hour or two talks, even though it's just like, hey, I'm coming down to ref your league, this and that. And it just continues and flows very well. And then I've refed for him a few times. And so, the spot and the pro team goes back to him, and we have a phone call. And I was like, I mean, I don't know what you're thinking. Or do you already have guys involved and he's like, well, I want West Coast people. I want SoCal. And then basically the same deal was extended. And I was like, I want to play for you. I don't need to make, Fedorov money like that. I want to play for you and have a coach and start to learn and grow again. And I also want to play with my two friends. You know, we're the three amigos, and he was cool with it. It was like it was almost like it was a no brainer for him too, and just that immediate connection was like, man, this is happening, and I. I was already kind of looking to move anyways because it was kind of like time for my own space. But I looked at one place outside of Davis. I met the real estate agent and she loved me. And she's like, well, put an application tonight. And I put in an application. So I looked at one place, I applied to one place, and I immediately got accepted. And within the next 3 days, with, you know, Tim's help and a U-Haul and my girl, we moved everything from the team house over to here. So it's like, you know, cool. Not, you know, we're all still friends over there, but obviously it's going to be awkward if you live in a house with people on another team. So it just made the transition very smooth and seamless to like, whoa, everything worked out where we all get our own space. There's not like going to be any kind of like weird tension or leftover resentment. And yeah, it just like all before New Year's, my entire life changed to play on this team under a legendary coach that everybody always wants to play underneath. Moved into a new house where it's my own standalone house. I used to live in Farmville out near Capitol Edge, so I couldn't even go for a walk or a bike ride because it was like 55-mile-an-hour roads. Now I live in suburbia, nice, quiet little area where I can go for walks, runs. I can go for a bike ride to the little main street and then in like a local brewery. I can bike to the gym. The gyms here are open with pools, hot tubs, saunas. So like my lifestyle is already healthier in the last week. And that kind of like circles back around to contribute to more happiness. Like now I'm not depressed because I'm not just sitting around like unable to do what I want and not really happy with my situation. It's like I made all these moves. I was happy and grateful for it. And then all these things happen to make me more healthy and enjoy my day to day, which is going to just continue to make me even more happy. So to, you know, back to your question, like I'm ecstatic about this. Like it really, it's not even a resolution. Like this year, it is like new year, new me, because I'm still the same me, but I'm about to live a completely different life, and I'm excited for change and getting outside of my comfort zone.
Well, Joe, I'm happy for you, and I'm very excited to see how the aftermath story is going to play out. I am also excited to see how the DMG story is going to play out without you guys, because it's going to be a new incarnation of that squad now. And anytime you kind of head into a new, you know, a whole new chapter with guys that have been there before, but having to take on new roles and play a bigger part, you know, it's a big test for them. So, but we talked about that. I think those guys are up for it. And I do think that that they have the capabilities. I've hung out with a couple of those guys. I feel, and I know Shane from back in the day. But yeah, I think it's going to be cool. So, you know, DMG is going to be a fun story to watch. Obviously, Aftermath, man, this is a developing story. We're going to keep you guys updated. We'll have Russell back on the show. We're going to have him in on the show as well too. We're going to have Kyle Barry on the show next week as well. As far as talking about ML Kings, they're also going to be trying to make some moves here in the off season. But yeah, Kyle, man, also just a really good guy, good paintball guy. But yeah, we're going to keep you guys flooded with content here coming forward into 2021. Again, mark the calendars for the 15th through the 17th of January. Is going to have the Pro Invitational down in Florida. We are going to be having more tactics episodes coming at you. We got more Ultimate Shootouts here in 2021. Got to get to that finale. Congratulations to Chad Boucher as he won the last one. But again, Joe, thank you so much for sitting in here, man. Looking forward to seeing how your story develops here. Anybody you want to thank? Any last thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I want to thank first off DMG, the entire organization, top to bottom. I can't say enough about that entire squad, the owners, the coaching, you know, Terry, who kind of became like my California stepdad, legendary Terry Fong. Just everybody in that whole camp and like that local community for all they did for me. I'm endlessly grateful for all the opportunities and the experiences and the memories. And I literally can't, there's nothing I could ever say negative about, you know, the team or anything like that. So no love lost. This was kind of just something I had to do for me, to get outside of my comfort zone again and get some real coaching and direction so I could learn and reach a different potential and try something new. It was never anything about you guys, and I'm happy to still live near you guys, and I hope to still always be friends and continue, our life journey together. Beyond that, I want to thank all my friends and family and literally everybody in paintball for the endless outpouring of support. That's another reason that I knew I made the right move, is because I've had so many comments online or messages or texts or calls that are like, congratulations, great move. Like it was a fearful thought of negative reactions, but now I know it was the right thing, because literally everybody has been very supportive. Of course, there's that 1% that are going to be upset in the moment, but even they were understanding, and it was nice to talk to them about it, and I appreciate the love. And finally, I appreciate Mike Hinman and Jerry and Aftermath for extending this great opportunity and giving me a chance to really challenge myself and be held accountable again, and grow and become the player that I know I could be with the right guidance. Just so grateful to start this new journey. I'm grateful for Tim and Josh for coming along with me. Obviously it wasn't like I dragged them, but I'm happy that the three of us all decided that this was going to be the way we could play and grow and get a chance to win again together. Yeah, I'm so pumped about this. And finally, thank you to all my previous sponsors. I feel like I've had to do this too many times. It is what it is that some of you won't be sponsoring more, but I've appreciated your support, the quality of your products, and it's only ever been great. I appreciate you coming sponsors. I believe we'll still be HK, which is great because I love HK guys. A lot of them are my good friends too. I believe we'll be DLX now, which I'm happy about too, because that is a high quality gun, and I loved shooting DLX on Tampa Bay Damage. And then a big shout out to my personal sponsors, Transfuse, who have been keeping me healthy and hydrated through COVID and working out and paintball and all that. Love you, Transfuse. And Free Flow, my longtime coach and mentor, Buddy Bauer, who outfitted me with the best autococker on the planet. Love you, Buddy. Love you, Free Flow, whole Free Flow staff. Probably want to send one of those to Matty for his recreational play. But yeah, anytime I play UWL or mechanical 7-man and 10-man events, oh God, I just get to shoot laser beams out there with my Free Flow autococker.
Hey, dude, don't even get started on the Free Flow. That's a bad, or autocockers in general. But yeah, they make a fine, amazing product. Yeah. It's worth every penny of the money. They probably should charge more, because those things are only going to increase in value. It's basically like a classic car investment type situation with the Free Flows. But yeah, well, Joe, thank you so much for sitting in. Really appreciate it. I didn't mean to cut you short. You got anyone else to thank before we sign off?
Finally, yeah, big thanks and shout out to you, Matty Marshall, the legend. Every time you call me, I say my legendary friend, Matty Marshall. It's not even like you're an unsung hero. Everybody already appreciates you, but still you're not given enough credit, between you and GoSports and NXL and what you do for our sport as far as a national and international output for what we do and the story that we all have. We need you. You're the narrator. You're the voice of paintball. You are our Morgan Freeman, and I love you, Matty.
Joe, I really appreciate that. The story must be told. Thank you for living a great one, and thank you guys so much for tuning in to hear these stories. We got a lot more coming at you in 2021. I can't wait for it. Speaking of Transfuse, Team Transfuse won the Call of Duty Warzone tournament that we had yesterday for Jesse Lyon, and we raised $5,000 for Jesse for the charity event. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to this season. Also looking forward to the interviews we have coming up. Kyle Barrett is going to be he's on the docket for Friday. Not exactly sure the time yet. But we're going to have a lot more coming at you. Like I said, tons of content here in 2021. Thank you guys so much for your support. We do this for you guys here at GoSports. I'll see you guys next time.